The Endless Night at Willowbrook Estate. Chapter 1. The Inheritance. Sarah stood at the iron gates of Willowbrook Estate, the key heavy in her hand, its cold metal an anchor to reality. She gazed at the mansion that had haunted her dreams since childhood. Its once grand facade now appeared sinister, cloaked in ivy and shadow. The will had come as a surprise, a cryptic note from her late great-grandmother, Eliza, whom she barely remembered. The solicitor's letter echoed in her mind. The estate is yours, but be warned, it carries a heavy burden. Pushing open the gates, she walked up the overgrown path, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, mingled with a faint, sweet aroma she couldn't quite place. It was as if the house exhaled the ghosts of its past. The front door creaked open, and Sarah stepped inside, greeted by a gust of stale air. Dust motes danced in the weak sunlight filtering through the grimy windows. She shivered despite herself. The house felt alive, its silence a deceptive cloak over a cacophony of whispers. She made her way through the darkened halls, her footsteps echoing on the wooden floors. Each room seemed to hold a fragment of her family's history, fragments she had never been privy to. She found the main fuse box and tried to restore the electricity, but the wires were corroded and useless. The candles she had brought flickered to life, their glow casting long shadows that writhed on the walls. In the parlour, a grand piano stood silent, its keys yellowed with age. The room was filled with old portraits of stern-faced ancestors, their eyes following her every move. She shivered, feeling the weight of their scrutiny. She could almost hear their voices, a chorus of judgment and despair. Chapter 2. The First Encounter. As night fell, the house seemed to grow colder, the shadows deeper. Sarah lit more candles, their warm light a small comfort against the encroaching darkness. She wandered through the house, exploring its many rooms, each one a testament to its former grandeur now lost to time. In the dining room, she found a long table set for a feast, the plates and silverware tarnished and covered in dust. A single fresh rose lay in the center, its petals vibrant red. She frowned, touching the flower. It was real, but how could that be? A sudden chill ran down her spine. She turned to see a figure standing in the doorway. It was a woman, her face pale and drawn, eyes hollow with despair. Her long dark hair fell in tangled waves around her shoulders, and her tattered dress fluttered as if caught in an unseen breeze. "Who are you?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The woman stepped forward, her movements fluid and unnatural. "I am Eliza," she said, her voice a haunting echo. "You must break the cycle." Chapter 3. Unraveling the Past. The next morning, Sarah woke with a start, the previous night's events a jumbled mess in her mind. Had it been a dream? The rose on the dining table said otherwise. Determined to uncover the truth, she spent the day searching the house for clues. In the attic, she found an old chest filled with letters, journals and photographs. The journals belonged to her great-grandfather Thomas, a man of science with a dark curiosity. As she read, a horrifying tale unfolded. Thomas had conducted cruel experiments on the servants and local villagers, driven by a desire to unlock the secrets of life and death. The ghosts she had seen were the victims of his madness, their souls trapped in the house, bound by their suffering. Sarah felt a surge of anger and sorrow. Her family's legacy was one of pain and torment, and she was the unwitting heir to this curse. That night the house came alive again. The air grew thick with whispers, and shadows moved with a life of their own. Sarah lit the candles, their flickering flames the only source of light. She walked through the house, her heart pounding, her breath shallow. In the library, she found another ghost, a young maid with hollow eyes and a blood-stained apron. "Help us," the maid whispered, her voice barely audible. "We cannot rest." Chapter 4. Confronting the Truth. Each night, Sarah relived the same horrors. The house reset itself, trapping her in a never-ending cycle of terror. She encountered more ghosts, each one a victim of her great-grandfather's cruelty. There was the gardener, whose limbs had been twisted and broken, the cook, who had been burned alive, and the stable boy, whose eyes were filled with unspeakable pain. Sarah felt the weight of their suffering, their pain resonating with her own unresolved trauma. Her family had been a mystery, a source of shame and guilt. Now she understood why. She was the last in a line of tormentors, the bearer of a dark legacy. One night, as she stood in the parlor, Eliza's ghost appeared again. "You have seen our suffering," she said, "but to break the cycle, you must do more. You must confront the source of the curse." Sarah nodded, determination hardening in her chest. "What must I do?" Eliza's ghost gestured to a hidden door in the wall. "In the basement lies the heart of the curse. You must face it and make amends." Chapter 5. The Descent. Sarah opened the hidden door, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. She took a deep breath and descended, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was a labyrinth of stone walls and flickering shadows, the smell of decay overwhelming. In the center of the room, she found a large stone altar covered in dark stains. This was where her great-grandfather had conducted his experiments, where the pain and suffering of countless victims had seeped into the very walls. As she approached the altar, the air grew heavy with a malevolent presence. The shadows coalesced into a dark figure, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It was Thomas, his spirit twisted by his own dark deeds. "Why have you come?" he hissed, his voice a serpentine whisper. "I am here to end this," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "To free the souls you have trapped." Thomas laughed, a sound devoid of mirth. "You think you can undo what has been done? You are but a frail mortal, bound by blood to this curse." Sarah took a deep breath, drawing strength from the memories of the ghosts she had encountered. "I may be bound by blood, but I choose to break the cycle. Your legacy of pain ends with me." She reached into her bag and pulled out the journals she had found, holding them up as if they were a shield. "Your experiments, your cruelty, they are the source of this curse. It is time for you to face the consequences of your actions." The figure of Thomas recoiled, the glow in his eyes dimming. The ground beneath the altar began to tremble, cracks spiderwebbing through the stone. A blinding light burst forth, and the basement was filled with the anguished cries of the tormented souls. Chapter 6. The Breaking of the Curse. The light grew brighter, enveloping Sarah and the figure of Thomas. She felt a surge of energy, a warmth that pushed back the darkness. The cries of the tormented souls grew louder, then faded into a soft, harmonious hum. When the light faded, Sarah found herself standing alone in the basement. The altar was gone, replaced by a smooth, unblemished floor. The air was clear, the oppressive weight lifted. She knew the curse had been broken. As she climbed the stairs back to the main house, she felt a sense of peace. The ghosts were gone, their souls finally at rest. The house, once a place of horror, now felt calm, almost welcoming. Sarah walked to the front door and opened it, stepping into the dawn. The sun's rays kissed her face, and she felt a sense of freedom she had never known. The curse of Willowbrook Estate was broken, the generational trauma finally laid to rest. She knew her great-grandparents' legacy would no longer haunt her, and she could now live her life unburdened by the past. She took one last look at the house before closing the door, a sense of finality settling over her. The past was behind her, and a new future awaited. With a deep breath, she walked down the path, the morning light guiding her steps. Chapter 7. The Dawn of New Beginnings. Sarah stepped away from Willowbrook Estate, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The morning sun bathed the world in golden light, the promise of a fresh start filling her with hope. Yet, as she walked down the path, a nagging uncertainty lingered. Could the curse truly be over? Was she really free from the shadows of her past? She glanced back at the mansion. It looked different now, its once threatening presence softened by the daylight. The overgrown garden seemed to have taken on a more tranquil appearance, as if the house itself was at peace. Determined to find answers, Sarah decided to visit the local library. The town where Willowbrook Estate was located was small, and its library, though modest, held a wealth of local history. She hoped to uncover more about her ancestors and the true nature of the curse that had haunted her family for generations. Chapter 8. Unearthing the Past. The library was quiet, its shelves lined with old, dusty books and faded newspapers. Sarah approached the librarian, an elderly woman with a kind face and a knowing look in her eyes. "Can I help you with something?" the librarian asked. "I'm researching my family history," Sarah said. "Specifically, the history of Willowbrook Estate." The librarian nodded and directed Sarah to a section of local archives. Hours passed as Sarah pored over records, letters, and old photographs. She discovered more about her great-grandfather Thomas's experiments, but also unearthed previously unknown details about the family's early years in the area. One particular document caught her eye, a handwritten diary belonging to her great-grandmother Eliza. It detailed Eliza's growing concerns about Thomas's experiments and their impact on the estate. The final entry was particularly chilling. "The darkness within Willowbrook grows stronger. Thomas's experiments have awakened something malevolent. We must find a way to end it before it consumes us all. I fear for our descendants." Sarah's heart pounded as she realized the gravity of Eliza's warning. The curse had not only been about the spirits trapped in the house, but also about the malignant force that Thomas had unleashed. Understanding this was crucial, as it meant that breaking the curse was only the beginning. Chapter 9. The True Test. Returning to Willowbrook, Sarah found the house much as she had left it. The tranquility was undeniable, but a subtle unease still lingered. She decided to explore the estate's grounds to ensure there were no remnants of the darkness that had once consumed it. In the overgrown garden, she discovered an old stone well hidden among the underbrush. It was covered with vines and debris, almost as if it had been deliberately concealed. Curiosity piqued. Sarah cleared away the overgrowth and peered inside. The well was deep, its bottom shrouded in darkness. Her heart skipped a beat as she saw something glinting at the bottom. A small, ornate box was partially buried in the muck. With a surge of determination, she climbed down the well and retrieved the box. It was surprisingly light, its surface intricately carved with strange symbols. Back inside the house, Sarah carefully opened the box. Inside was a collection of old, faded artifacts, a locket, a ring, and a few pieces of parchment covered in cryptic writing. Among them was a letter addressed to her. The letter was from Eliza, written shortly before her death. It detailed Eliza's desperate attempt to contain the malevolent force that Thomas had unleashed. She had hidden these artifacts in the well, hoping they would serve as a safeguard against the darkness. Chapter 10. Confronting the Darkness. The letter spoke of a final ritual to cleanse the estate of the remaining malevolence. Sarah gathered the artifacts and prepared for the ritual described in the letter. The process was complex and required specific items, including the artifacts from the box, a bowl of salt, and a candle made from beeswax. As night fell, Sarah set up the ritual in the parlor, the same room where she had first encountered Eliza's ghost. She followed the instructions meticulously, arranging the artifacts in a circle and placing the bowl of salt in the center. She lit the beeswax candle and began to chant the incantations from the letter. The air grew heavy, and the temperature dropped as if the house itself were holding its breath. Shadows flickered around her, coalescing into a dark, swirling mass in the center of the room. The malevolent force, the remnant of Thomas's experiments, was fighting to hold on. Sarah focused on the ritual, her voice steady as she recited the words of the incantation. The shadows writhed and shrank, the darkness dissipating under the strength of the ritual. The candle's flame burned brightly, pushing back the encroaching darkness. With a final, powerful chant, Sarah completed the ritual. The room was filled with a brilliant light, and the shadows vanished, leaving the house bathed in a warm, soothing glow. The oppressive weight lifted, and Sarah felt a deep sense of relief. Chapter 11. A New Beginning. In the days that followed, Sarah continued to make improvements to Willowbrook estate. The house was no longer a place of dread, but a sanctuary. She restored the garden, cleaned the rooms, and transformed the estate into a home once more. The local community, intrigued by the positive changes, welcomed her with open arms. Sarah shared her story, her journey from despair to redemption, and the town embraced her as one of their own. Willowbrook estate became a symbol of new beginnings and healing. As she walked through the garden one morning, Sarah looked up at the mansion. It stood as a testament to her strength and perseverance. The house was no longer a relic of the past, but a beacon of hope for the future. Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. The curse was broken, the darkness had been confronted, and the ghosts of the past were finally laid to rest. She had faced the horrors of her family's legacy and emerged victorious. Willowbrook estate was now a place of light and possibility, a new chapter in her life's journey. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped into the house, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The endless night had ended, and a new day had dawned.